Welcome to another episode of Learn from People Who Lived It.
Well, hi there. My name is Matthew Blades, and I'm a conversation coach, a former broadcaster, and this is the podcast that's all about what happens when life becomes the teacher. Every Tuesday, we are so lucky to bring in that woman right there. There's Tuesdays with CoCo, Cortney McDermott. She is an author, she is a speaker, and she is just an all-around good person. And before we jump into your content today, I have to share something with you. Do you have a minute?
Yes.
What a silly question. You're on my podcast, and I asked you
I got 20 minutes at least. Yeah.
20. Amazing. So you remember a couple of weeks ago, we had this awesome conversation about hope and trust.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay. So this past week, I was facilitating my life group at my house, and organically, hope and trust came up. And it was so cool that it was just on the heels of our conversation, and then it was, showing up again. And then this past Sunday, I was at church, and we had a guest speaker, and he delivered this line, Court, that I wrote down because I thought it was so awesome. He said, "Faith bridges the gap between hope and trust." Mm-hmm. And I thought it was just so cool that this theme keeps showing up for me. And so in some small way, I guess I'm saying thank you for lighting that spark, because apparently this is a conversation that's not going to go away anytime soon.
Right. Yeah. You were meant to get the message again. I love it.
Yeah. But what do you think about that? What do you think about that idea of faith bridges the gap between hope and trust?
Well, so what I was saying when we talked about this, it was last week or a couple of weeks ago, is
2 weeks ago. Yeah.
When we say I hope for something, it's almost like we don't, will it happen? Will it not, or sort of having that feeling like that we can't totally trust. And when we don't totally trust, we're losing energy. We're losing power. And so, and the way that how I view it is kind of like how just trusting that God's going to work through us, that life is working for us. It's kind of like that Einstein quote. One of my favorite teachings from him was something along the lines of, the most important decision you're ever going to make is whether you live in a friendly world or a hostile one, or he said universe, I think. And that's the point, right? Is can I trust? Can I relax into trust even here? Can I relax into trust even when I don't understand it? Can I trust that there is something very powerful that is working on my behalf, that wants me to be well, that wants everyone to be well? Can I trust that? Do I say it, or do I actually trust it? And so it seems that you were kind of meant to get that message again. I feel like we're all meant to get that message again, because we're bombarded by so many messages that say, don't trust, be afraid, all the things. And it's daunting, right? So we need those reminders from each other to say it's safe to trust. It's safe to trust even when you're afraid. And the more you can relax into it, the more you're going to start experiencing things very differently.
So good. Well, I trust that we're going to have a great conversation today. Mm-hmm. For those that don't know, Court's got a couple of books out I encourage you to check out. They're so good. They're great reads, and they don't take, like, even for somebody like me who has a hard time reading books or listening to books, I found myself flying through them. So I just wanted to say that. Today, you want to talk about talent. Tell me why you wanted to talk about this.
Yeah. So, every week we're sharing this one great teaching, right? And this week, what came up for me was a reminder of this parable that Jesus tells about this master who gives his servants these talents, right? And at the time, talent was another word for money. And I find that also to be very instructional. So he gives the first servant something like 5 talents. And the second one, I think 2 or 3. And then the last one, he gives 1 talent. And he leaves them for a while. And he comes back. And the man who had been given 5 talents doubled his talents. So the master gives him double that. And then he goes to the next one. And this next one's also very excited and shares that, he's been able to double the talents. And so the master, again, I believe doubles or gives him a couple more. I can't recall exactly, but then he goes to the last one who he had given 1 talent to. And, the way I like to tell it is like, the guy's like, I didn't know what to do with this. And so he had buried it. And so the master takes that 1 talent that he had buried and he gives it to the guy who had originally had the 5. And so when I think about this, I think it ties in really perfectly too to also to wealth consciousness, which we've talked about before on your podcast many times. But it's this idea that we're all given these talents, we're all given these gifts, and our job, if you will, like the one job that we have, is to start revealing those talents, is to start uncovering and expressing those talents. And as we do that, we find other talents. They somehow compound on one another, and we're given more. And when we don't, on the other hand, when we let ourselves be led by distraction and delusion and demand, we forget that, holy smokes, we get to design based on the gifts we've been given. And again, the parallel with money and the way that works, I find also to be fascinating. So I wanted to share this teaching because it's really affected me and the way I use it, right? Because we don't just share the teaching, but we talk about the applicability of it. For me, the way I use this is really, again, understanding this thing. I seem to be like a lot of people seem to be in resonance with this. This seems to be a gift that I've been given. And how do I enhance that gift? How do I continue to build that gift? How do I nurture that gift? How do I give that gift? How do I show up every day for that gift? And then in my own life, I've seen, wow, when I've done that, these other ones have come up and I've said, well, oh, wow, could I build that too? Could I enhance that too? Can I expand that? Can I bring that to more? And as I do that, again, it's like it becomes prolific in terms of what you can experience through your talents. Yeah.
Question for you. In your own journey or clients that you've worked with, how did you start to trust your talent?
Oh, wow. I love it. You're bringing us back to trust. I think it was putting my kind of the ego self, which is great. You know me, I always talk about how I love the ego. Like the ego is the lowercase I. It's how we're expressing a character through this form, right? But there's this greater intelligence at work that, you know, I call God. We can call potentially by many names, but it's this intelligence. And so when I started to say, I've built these things up. I've tried this. I've worked at this, but now I hand it over to you, and I give it to you almost to guide it through me in a way. It's sort of like I reverse the order. So I put the ego in service to, or the character in service to this greater intelligence, and that's how I started to trust the gift more. I started to trust the talent more because it wasn't coming from the lowercase I. It's not coming from Cortney, who goes and does this and talks about that. It's coming from the way that I feel that the formless is expressing through my form. And the more I've decided to relax and settle into that, to answer your question again, is the more I've become able to trust. And then, like I said, build those talents upon each other. Yeah.
I would also think that our environment, the outside influence has a say in how we kind of build up trust to our gifts, because I just think of people that I know in my own life whose parents on the way up said, you're going to be this, you're good at this. This is what you should be doing with your life. And, they almost they don't even, it's and we're on the way up. So we're not even given a chance to think for ourselves. And what's coming through me as you and I talk is, man, I really hope every single person, as soon as they're done with this podcast, or maybe in the meditation that we're going to have here in just a few minutes, can start to think about, what is the talent that God gave me? What is the talent that I'm here to give to this world? And I'll share a super quick story with you. I don't remember what the book was that I was reading, but they were talking about something very similar to this. And in the book, they were talking about this guy who was a really good hummer. Just
Hummer?
Very good at humming.
Okay.
Yeah, very good at humming. I know.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? It's a very
Love it.
funny example, but
Yeah.
it will drive it home. And he would say to his friends all the time, and it wasn't humming, it was whistling. I'm so stupid. It was whistling. And he goes, and I'm not so stupid. I didn't mean to say that about myself.
Good. Thank you for catching yourself in that.
You're welcome.
Yes.
You're
Good
welcome.
job. Mm-hmm.
But it's whistling, and his friends were like, "You're such a great whistler," and he was thinking, "Yeah, but what am I ever gonna do with it?"
Mm-hmm.
And they encouraged him. They said, "Well, why don't you start making videos and show people how you whistle?" And long story short, this guy is like one of the bigger whistler YouTubers out there, and he teaches people
Wow.
how to whistle.
Wow. You have to send
It's
me a link to his stuff. I want to learn how to whistle better. I love it.
okay. Yeah, I never went down the rabbit hole to go and actually watch him. It was just in the book. But the point that the author was trying to make is like, you may think that your talent isn't much, but it's a
Exactly.
lot to somebody else.
Yeah.
And so I love this thing that we're talking about. And so, as I said a second ago, my hope is that everybody listening steps away from this podcast and they start to look inside and go, what am I here to do? And just really start to pray on it and meditate on it and think about it and just wait for that answer to reveal itself. And then it's about action, right?
Yes, yes. Well, let's bring that part back that you just said about the environment and how it can inform us, right? You and I did a previous episode on this series that's was about Einstein's teaching. A lot of Einstein's coming out today, but that teaching that the field is the sole governing agency of the particle. So what is around you, both your external environment, but also clearly, as we've talked about before too, your inner environment are informing the form. So if you've heard people say, oh, people used to tell me, oh, you're so enthusiastic. You're so enthusiastic. I would get that all the time. And I was just like, oh, okay, really? And I didn't really know how to interpret that. One of my bosses actually said, everything is so great with you. I was doing this yearly assessment. He said, everything's so fantastic. It's just that sometimes you're a little too enthusiastic. And I found out later that enthusiasm, because, I love etymology and studying the origin of words and languages and studying languages and enthusiasm comes from entheos, which means in God. So it's very similar to the word inspired, right? In spirito, in spirit. And so I started to realize, oh, wow, nice. I love that. I love that that's what they're associating me with. And then I started to realize that's part of what I'm here to do, is to enthuse others. And I don't see that as a rah thing. That's about, how does God want to express through you? And so you can sometimes from your environment get those clues back, so it's not necessarily, okay, I have to sit in silence and wait for something, which is great too. But it's also, what are people telling me? Like the whistler, what are people saying? Oh, you're really great at. I've met a couple of people who are amazing whistlers. I wish I'd told them that they could start a YouTube channel. Okay. Where are we going from here, Mr. Blades?
Well, we could jump into the meditation if you want, or we could talk about whistling some more.
Is anyone out there live right now, since we're live, want to know more about whistling? Okay, well, meditation it is. All right, let's go into a meditation. Yeah.
So good. So before we go, are you a good whistler?
I'm a decent whistler. I think I'm a very good in terms of just even tones and musicality. I love singing. I love it. I love whistling occasionally. Yeah, I've been known to whistle. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a bit of a whistler myself. I can whistle in and I can whistle out, which not everybody can.
While you work. That's a really nice reminder too. Whistle while you work, Maybe that's next week's teaching. Yeah. Okay.
All right. Well, listen, the music's on, and unless you're driving, you can join us on our meditation.
Yes, please do not join us with this in terms of closing your eyes. But if it feels good and you're in a safe place to do it, I invite you to close your eyes, maybe get horizontal. Just settle into relaxation with us. Remembering that relaxing is one of the key ways that we can bring these talents forth, that we can hear that still inner voice or inner teacher that wants to express through us in a very specific and beautiful way. Just breathing into space. So beautiful that you're giving yourself the space right now to just get with yourself. And appreciating that about you. How wonderful that in all the distraction and all the noise, you've decided to tune out so that you can tune in to the ways God wants to move through you. You can remember the talents that you bring. And again, just noticing without trying to force or change anything. Life doesn't respond to force, it responds to frequency, which is why we meditate, why we get with it. We sort of groove with it. How do you want to groove or dance with your talents, with your gifts? What's one way maybe today that you can just shine them out, share? And I invite you to stay in this space for as long as you want. If you want to turn this off and just relax there and listen and come back later, please do that. And if instead you're ready to come back here to the screen or the audio or however you're experiencing this, go ahead and open your eyes and join us back.
Thank you. I can't help but end today with something you said during that meditation, which is life doesn't respond to force, it responds to frequency.
Mm-hmm.
That might be the line that I walk away from and think about for the next week. So
Right.
Thanks for that.
Mm-hmm. You're welcome.
Every Tuesday, we're joined by Cortney McDermott. I just want to remind everybody that there is more where that came from. As I mentioned up front, she's got a couple of great books out there that are just so worth reading. It's more of the goodness you get every Tuesday when she's with us. Tomorrow, my buddy Dr. Dave will be back for Dr. Dave's Mind Works. And this is just, it's so great, this series that y'all have been kind enough to jump in with me, because every day, every day is one great teaching, quite frankly. It's like you pick up all these great nuggets that just make us feel like more of ourselves. And I don't know, I like it. It just feels good to me. So thanks again, Cortney. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Mr. Blades, and thank you to everyone who's listening. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thanks for listening. Don't forget to please hit like and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. But just so you know, we're here every single day, 12:30 Mountain Time, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody tomorrow. Have a really great day.